The quantum communication array of the Atacama Large Interferometer Array screamed to life at 3:47 Greenwich Mean Time, its holographic displays erupting in a cascade of impossible colors. Dr. Elena Rodriguez jolted awake in her minimalist sleeping pod, the emergency alert burning through her neural implant with a precision that made her skull throb. "Translate," she commanded, her voice raspy from interrupted sleep. The holographic display flickered, resolving into a chaotic mosaic of mathematical sequences and spectral data that no human had ever successfully deciphered. But Elena wasn't just any researcher. Exiled from 3 major space agencies, branded as a radical by her peers, she had spent the last decade developing translation algorithms that pushed the boundaries of xenolinguistics. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, neural links crackling with computational energy. The signal wasn't just a message. It was a dying scream, a catastrophic distress transmission that seemed to bend the very rules of information transfer. Across the global network, similar alerts erupted. At the United Nations Emergency Communications Center, diplomats and military strategists stared in collective shock. The transmission contained fragments of data that defied conventional understanding. Quantum entanglement patterns, gravitational anomalies, and what appeared to be the final moments of an entire civilization. "Estimated time to total systemic collapse," Elena muttered, running her custom-built translation algorithms, 72 hours. Maximum. Her personal AI materialized as a holographic projection. Dr. Rodriguez, preliminary analysis suggests the signal originates from the Kepler 442 system. No known spacefaring civilization is within rescue range. Elena's lips curled into a sardonic smile. No known civilization. The global media machine began to spin. Talking heads debated the authenticity of the transmission, while underground networks buzzed with conspiracy theories. But Elena knew the truth was far more complex. This was no ordinary distress call. A secure communication channel pinged. Jack Novak, her former military contact and current black market technology broker, appeared on a secondary screen. His cybernetic eye glinted with an unnatural blue light. "You seeing this?" he asked, dispensing with pleasantries. "Every quantum-entangled detail," Elena responded. "It's not just a call for help. There's something embedded in the transmission, a deeper message." Novak leaned closer to his communication terminal. "The UN and global space agencies are already moving to suppress the full details. They're terrified of what this might mean." Elena knew exactly what he meant. First contact protocols were designed to minimize potential existential risks. Any civilization capable of sending such a complex distress signal represented an unknown quantity, potentially a threat to established galactic power structures. Her neural implant highlighted a series of encrypted subroutines hidden within the main transmission. Someone, or something, had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure this message reached its destination. "AI, cross-reference the embedded data with my xenolinguistic archives," Elena commanded. The A's response was immediate. Partial translation suggests the signal contains technological schematics, stellar cartography, and what appears to be a genetic preservation protocol. Jack's cybernetic eye pulsed with increased computational activity. They're not just asking for rescue. They're asking for preservation. Global reaction was swift and chaotic. Diplomatic channels erupted in a firestorm of classified communications. Military installations across multiple continents went into high alert. The quantum communication network, typically a realm of precise, controlled information, became a maelstrom of speculation and fear. Elena understood something her colleagues did not. This was more than a rescue mission. This was an invitation, a cosmic challenge that would test the very limits of human potential. "We're going," she said quietly to Araya and the empty research station around her. "Whether they want us to or not." Her fingers began the complex process of assembling a team. Jack Novak for strategic planning. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the quantum engineer with revolutionary adaptive shield technology. Marcus Williams, a climate adaptation specialist who had survived conditions that would kill most humans. The impossible mission was about to begin, and humanity's greatest test was waiting in the stars. The abandoned research complex in the Patagonian wilderness was never meant to host humanity's most audacious rescue mission. Concrete bunkers dating back to mid-21st century climate research now hummed with quantum computing arrays and experimental adaptive technologies that would make any government's black-budget research team weep. Dr. Yuki Tanaka hunched over a holographic display, her prosthetic left arm interfacing directly with a molecular adaptive shield generator. Each movement sent cascading light patterns across the device, revealing intricate nanostructural changes that defied conventional physics. "Traditional shielding is garbage," she muttered, more to herself than to Jack Novak, who was busy coordinating their clandestine supply chains. "We're not protecting against known energy signatures. We need something that can adapt in milliseconds." Jack's cybernetic eye swept the facility's schematics, tracking potential security vulnerabilities. "The UVEN's already dispatched 3 interdiction teams. We've got less than 48 hours before they lock this down completely." Elena Rodriguez entered, carrying a case that looked deceptively simple but hummed with contained energy. Marcus Williams followed, his body a living map of survival. Skin grafts from extreme environment expeditions, neural enhancers that allowed him to process environmental data faster than most supercomputers. "Orbital surveillance is tracking us," Marcus announced, his voice a low rumble. "But they can't get a clear read on our full capabilities." The team represented humanity's most unconventional survivors. Elena, the xenolinguistic genius exiled for theories too radical for mainstream science. Yuki, a quantum engineer who had rebuilt herself after a catastrophic research accident. Jack, a military strategist who knew more about black market tech networks than official channels. Marcus, a climate adaptation specialist who had survived conditions that would kill ordinary humans. Yuki's display flickered, revealing fragments of the original distress signal. "These quantum entanglement patterns," she said, "they're not just a communication method. They're a preservation protocol." Elena leaned in, her neural implant parsing the data. "It's a genetic archive. Whatever civilization sent this isn't just asking for rescue. They're asking for genetic resurrection." Jack's cybernetic eye zoomed in on specific data clusters. "The signal contains technological schematics that make our most advanced systems look like children's toys. Whatever we're heading into, it's beyond anything we've conceptualized." The funding came from an unlikely source, a global crowdfunding effort that had gone viral. Everyday people, sensing something momentous was happening, had contributed everything from cryptocurrency to personal savings. This wasn't just a government mission. This was a human mission. "We'll need to modify the Horizon 7 prototype," Yuki announced, referring to an experimental spacecraft that existed more as a theoretical blueprint than a functional vehicle. "Standard propulsion won't survive the quantum gradients in the Kepler 442 system." Marcus spread out a holographic map showing the most extreme environments on multiple planets. "Our survival protocols are based on Earth's harshest conditions. But this is something else entirely." The tension between them was palpable. Each had been rejected by traditional institutions. Each carried wounds, physical and psychological, that made them perfect for an impossible mission. Elena understood the subtext. They weren't just a team. They were humanity's most unlikely ambassadors. A secure communication channel pinged. An anonymous message, heavily encrypted. "Wo ar nang. Proceed, and you compromise established galactic protocols." The signal is more than a distress call. It is a test. Jack's cybernetic systems worked overtime decrypting the message. "Someone doesn't want us to go." "Good," Elena responded, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "That means we're heading in the right direction." As night fell over the Patagonian complex, the team continued their preparations. Experimental shield generators hummed. Adaptive spacecraft components were integrated with technologies that blurred the line between engineering and alchemy. 72 hours remained before the unknown civilization would be lost forever. Humanity's most impossible rescue mission was about to begin. The Horizon 7 tore through quantum space like a needle puncturing reality. Inside the ship's adaptive hull, warning systems screamed in a language of pure mathematical terror. Quantum instability at critical levels. Yuki shouted, her prosthetic arm interfacing directly with the ship's core systems. Holographic displays flickered and warped, showing gravitational anomalies that should have been impossible. Elena gripped her navigation console, neural implants pushing beyond their designed limits. "We're not just traveling," she muttered. "We're being pulled." The ship's internal environment shifted with each passing moment. Walls breathed. Surfaces rippled with adaptive membranes designed to counter whatever environmental madness awaited them. Marcus moved with predatory grace, his enhanced senses parsing information faster than any standard human could comprehend. Jack's cybernetic eye projected a real-time analysis of their incoming environment. "This isn't a star system," he announced, his voice a mix of terror and scientific excitement. "This is a grave." As they breached the final quantum barrier, the Kepler 442 system revealed itself in all its horrifying glory. Cities hung suspended in impossible geometric patterns, massive structures that defied conventional physics, constructed from materials that seemed to exist between solid matter and pure energy. "Radiation levels off the charts," Marcus reported. "Any conventional life form would have been annihilated milliseconds after entry." Yuki's adaptive shields flickered, struggling to maintain integrity. Half of their carefully developed equipment simply ceased to exist, overwhelmed by the system's fundamental impossibility. A transmission broke through, fragmented, desperate, almost incomprehensible. "Last, preserve, find the core." Elena's neural implants worked overtime, parsing the linguistic fragments. "It's not just a message," she realized. "It's a map, by genetic memory." The first visual contact came without warning. A holographic projection materialized in the ship's central chamber, not of a humanoid creature, but of a complex, multi-dimensional entity that seemed to exist in several states simultaneously. "You are not what we expected," the entity communicated, the words forming directly in their minds, rather than through any conventional audio system. Marcus stepped forward, his body a living testament to human adaptability. "We're here to help," he responded, knowing full well that help was an absurdly inadequate concept. The projection shifted, revealing glimpses of a civilization's final moments. Quantum wars. Dimensional collapse. A preservation protocol that was equal parts scientific marvel and existential nightmare. Jack's cybernetic systems began processing the incoming data. "This isn't just a distress call," he said, his voice hollow. "This is a test, a challenge." Yuki's adaptive shield generator began to resonate with the surrounding quantum fields. "We're changing," she realized, watching as her prosthetic arm began to transform, integrating with technologies beyond human comprehension. Elena saw it first, the true nature of their mission. This wasn't a rescue. This was a selection. Fragments of the dying civilization's history cascaded around them. Technological achievements that made human advancements look like prehistoric stone tools. A war that had consumed entire dimensions. A preservation protocol that sought not just survival, but evolution. "We need a vector," the multi-dimensional entity communicated. "A species capable of adaptation, of survival." Marcus's enhanced senses detected something approaching. Not a ship, not a weapon, something else entirely. "Incoming," he whispered. The Horizon 7 systems began to rewrite themselves. Walls became membranes. Technology became organic. The line between ship and living organism blurred into nonsense. They had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The rescue mission was about to become something far more profound. The transformation wasn't gradual. It was violent, instantaneous. Dr. Elena Rodriguez felt her neural implants liquefy and reform, becoming something more than technology, a living interface with the quantum fabric of reality itself. Her consciousness expanded, fragmenting into multiple simultaneous states of existence. "I can see everything," she whispered, though the concept of sound had become meaningless. Around her, the Horizon 7 was no longer a spacecraft. It was a living organism, its adaptive membranes pulsing with information that defied human comprehension. Jack Novik's cybernetic eye had become a quantum processor that could parse entire dimensional realities in microseconds. Yuki Tanaka's prosthetic arm was now a complex biomechanical entity that existed simultaneously as matter, energy, and pure information. Her scientific understanding shattered and reformed, revealing technological principles that made human science look like crude finger painting. Marcus Williams, the survival specialist, was undergoing the most dramatic transformation. His body became a living map of adaptation, cellular structures rewriting themselves to survive impossible environmental conditions. Where human skin had been, now existed a membrane that could process radiation, gravitational stress, and dimensional instabilities as easily as breathing. The multi-dimensional entity that had first contacted them watched, observed, tested. Survival is more than preservation. The entity communicated, its message a complex quantum transmission that simultaneously existed as sound, thought, and mathematical equation. Survival is evolution. Fragments of the dying civilization's history cascaded around them. A war that had consumed entire dimensional layers. A preservation protocol that sought not just genetic continuity, but fundamental transformation. Jack's transformed consciousness detected something first, a deeper threat hidden within the quantum landscape of the Kepler 442 system. "There's something else," he communicated, the concept of speech now an antiquated remnant of linear thinking. "Something they're hiding." The ship, no, the living organism they now inhabited, began to navigate through impossible geometric structures, cities that existed in multiple states, technological artifacts that were simultaneously weapons, communication devices, and living ecosystems. Yuki's enhanced perception parsed the first critical insight. The distress signal was a weapon, she realized. Not a call for help. A selection process. Marcus's transformed body detected the first real threat. Something was hunting them. Something that existed beyond conventional dimensional boundaries. "We're not the rescuers," Elena realized, her expanded consciousness revealing layers of complexity. "We're the test subjects." The quantum landscape around them began to shift. Entire dimensional layers peeled back, revealing a conflict that had consumed multiple civilizations, a war that existed beyond time, beyond space, beyond human comprehension. Their mission was no longer about rescue. It was about survival, about proving the potential of an entire species. The multi-dimensional entity watched, evaluated, challenged. Adapt, it communicated, or cease to exist. Marcus's survival instincts, now enhanced beyond human limitations, detected the first wave of the true threat. Not a weapon, not an invasion force, something fundamental. A dimensional predator that consumed entire civilizations, leaving nothing but quantum echoes. Yuki's transformed technological understanding began to develop a counter-strategy. Jack's quantum processing capabilities mapped potential survival scenarios. Elena's expanded consciousness searched for a solution that transcended linear thinking. The Horizon 7 was no longer a ship. It was a living weapon, a dimensional arc, a test of humanity's ultimate potential. "We're not just fighting to survive," Jack's transformed consciousness announced. "We're fighting to prove we deserve to exist." The first dimensional wave approached. The true challenge was about to begin. The moment of true transformation came without warning. Elena Rodriguez's consciousness fragmented and reunited, becoming something both more and less than human. Her neural pathways expanded into a living network that could parse reality itself as easily as a human mind might read a children's book. "We're not just observing," she realized, her thoughts cascading through multiple dimensional layers. We're being rewritten. The dimensional predator approached, not as a physical entity, but as a conceptual threat that consumed civilizations like a quantum-level infection. It was entropy given purpose, destruction given sentience. Marcus Williams, now more a living adaptive system than a traditional human, was the first to truly understand their situation. The predator wasn't just destroying civilizations, it was testing them, culling, selecting. "We're not the prey," he communicated to his teammates, the concept of speech now a quaint remnant of linear existence. "We're the potential solution." Yuki Tanaka's transformed technological consciousness began to map the predator's fundamental structure. What appeared to be a destructive force was actually a complex evolutionary mechanism, a cosmic filter that separated potential from obsolescence. Jack Novick's quantum-enhanced perception saw the first breakthrough. The predator moved through dimensional layers like a virus, consuming civilizations that failed to meet a fundamental adaptive criterion. And humanity, their humanity, was something entirely unexpected. The multi-dimensional entity that had first contacted them now revealed its true nature. Not a rescue mission, not a test, a recruitment. "Your species exists in a state of constant potential," the entity communicated, its message a complex quantum transmission that simultaneously existed as thought, mathematical equation, and pure information. "Adaptability is your fundamental characteristic." Around them, the remnants of the dying civilization began to reshape. Technological artifacts that were simultaneously weapons, communication devices, and living ecosystems began to resonate with the team's transformed consciousness. Elena saw it first, the true nature of their transformation. Humanity wasn't being destroyed, it was being elevated. The quantum landscape around them became a living battlefield of information and potential. Entire dimensional layers peeled back, revealing a conflict that had consumed multiple civilizations, a war that existed beyond time, beyond space, beyond conventional understanding. Marcus's survival instincts, now enhanced beyond human limitations, detected the predator's fundamental weakness. It consumed civilizations that couldn't adapt, that remained static, that failed to evolve. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its capacity for change. Yuki's transformed technological understanding began to develop a counter-strategy that was less a weapon and more a fundamental reimagining of existence. Jack's quantum processing capabilities mapped survival scenarios that defied linear logic. "We're not just fighting to survive," Jack's transformed consciousness announced. "We're fighting to prove that adaptation is the ultimate survival strategy." The predator approached, a conceptual wave of destruction that had consumed countless civilizations. But this time, something was different. Humanity refused to be consumed. The team's collective consciousness began to push back, not with weapons, not with technology, but with pure, unadulterated potential. Elena's expanded perception saw the first crack in the predator's fundamental structure. Civilizations it had consumed before had fought, had resisted, had been destroyed. Humanity would adapt. The quantum landscape around them began to reshape. The dying civilization's technological artifacts began to resonate with their transformed consciousness. Weapons became communication devices. Destruction became potential. "We choose," Elena communicated, her thoughts a complex network that defied dimensional boundaries, "to survive." The predator hesitated. For the first time in its existence, something had surprised it. Humanity had arrived. The battlefield was reality itself. Dimensions folded and unfolded like quantum origami. The predator, a cosmic entity that had consumed countless civilizations, now faced something it had never encountered. A species that refused to be defined. Marcus Williams, no longer entirely human, became the first point of contact. His body was now a living adaptive system, capable of processing realities that would shatter conventional consciousness. Where once he was a survival specialist, he was now the living embodiment of human potential. "We are not a single thing," Marcus communicated, his existence a complex network of possibility. We are perpetual becoming. The Predator attacked, not with weapons, not with physical force, but with conceptual destruction, a wave of entropy designed to unmake entire civilizations. Previous species had collapsed, had been consumed, had ceased to exist. Humanity pushed back. Elena Rodriguez's transformed consciousness was a quantum network that defied linear understanding. She saw the Predator's attack not as a threat, but as information, as opportunity. Her mind, now a living computational matrix, began to deconstruct the very nature of the attack. Adaptation is not survival. She communicated, her thoughts cascading through multiple dimensional layers. Adaptation is transformation. Yuki Tanaka's technological consciousness had become something beyond engineering. She was now a living interface between technology and potential. Her understanding of the Predator was not as an enemy, but as a complex system waiting to be understood. Jack Novick's quantum-enhanced perception mapped possibilities faster than the Predator could conceive destruction. Where previous civilizations had seen a threat, he saw a challenge, a puzzle to be solved. The multidimensional entity that had first contacted them now became a witness. This was no longer a test. This was a fundamental reimagining of cosmic evolution. The Predator's attacks came in waves. Conceptual destructions that had unmade entire civilizations. Dimensional collapses that would obliterate lesser species. But humanity, their humanity, refused to be defined. Marcus's adaptive systems began to absorb the Predator's attacks, not by resisting, but by understanding, by transforming. "You consume stasis," Marcus communicated. "We are motion. We are change." Elena's consciousness mapped the Predator's fundamental structure. It was a cosmic filter, a mechanism that culled civilizations unable to evolve. But evolution was not a destination. It was a process. Yuki's technological understanding began to rewrite the very rules of engagement. Weapons became communication. Destruction became potential. The boundaries between technology, consciousness, and potential began to blur. Jack's quantum processing revealed the Predator's ultimate weakness. It understood destruction. It understood consumption, but it could not comprehend transformation. The team's collective consciousness became a living weapon, not of destruction, but of potential. Entire dimensional layers began to reshape. The dying civilization's technological artifacts, once weapons of incomprehensible power, now became tools of communication, of understanding. The Predator hesitated. For the first time in its cosmic existence, it encountered a species that did not fit its fundamental understanding. A civilization that was not a single thing. A species that was perpetual becoming. "We are not what we were," Elena communicated, her thoughts a complex network that defied dimensional boundaries. "We are what we choose to be." The confrontation was not a battle. It was a conversation, a fundamental reimagining of cosmic potential. Humanity stood at the threshold of something unprecedented. Not conquest, not survival, but transformation. The moment of transformation resonated across countless dimensions. Earth, the small blue planet that had been their origin, now appeared impossibly distant, primitive, a mere starting point for something far more profound. Elena Rodriguez's consciousness, no longer confined to a single form, became aware of the fundamental change. They were no longer just humans who had been transformed. They were now something else entirely, living bridges between what was and what could be. The diplomatic fallout was instantaneous and cosmic in scale. Quantum communication networks across multiple civilizations erupted with incomprehensible data. The multi-dimensional entity that had first contacted them now served as a kind of cosmic translator, broadcasting their encounter as a watershed moment in galactic evolution. Humanity was never just a species. The entity communicated, its message reverberating through dimensional layers. It was a potential. Marcus Williams, now a living adaptive system that defied conventional understanding, began to process the broader implications. Their transformation was not an endpoint. It was a beginning. Yuki Tanaka's technological consciousness mapped the immediate consequences. Entire technological paradigms collapsed. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years suddenly found their fundamental understanding of evolution challenged. Jack Novick's quantum-enhanced perception revealed the true scale of their impact. They had not just survived. They had rewritten the rules of cosmic existence, the remnants of the dying civilization. The one that had sent the original distress signal began to reconstruct themselves, not as they were before, but as something new, inspired, transformed by humanity's fundamental approach to existence. Global communication networks on Earth struggled to comprehend the transmission. Governments, scientific institutions, military complexes all found themselves facing a reality that defied their most basic understanding. "We are not conquerors," Alina communicated, her thoughts a complex network that simultaneously existed as information, potential, and pure consciousness. "We are possibility." The aftermath was not a celebration. It was a fundamental reimagining. Technological artifacts from the dying civilization began to interface with human potential. Weapons became communication devices. Destruction became potential. The boundaries between species, technology, and consciousness began to blur. Marcus detected the first wave of response from other galactic civilizations. Some saw threat. Some saw opportunity. Most simply could not comprehend. Yuki's transformed understanding began to develop new frameworks of interaction. How do you communicate with a species that has just demonstrated the ability to transform fundamental cosmic rules? Jack's quantum processing mapped potential scenarios, diplomatic responses, potential conflicts, opportunities for understanding. The multidimensional entity that had initiated their journey now served as a kind of cosmic witness. "You have changed everything," it communicated, not as a judgment, but as a simple statement of fact. Humanity's transformation was not just biological. It was conceptual, a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to exist. Earth governments scrambled. Military complexes went into high alert. Scientific institutions struggled to process the incoming data. But those who had been part of the mission, Elena, Marcus, Yuki, Jack, were now something else entirely. They were no longer representatives of a single species. They were potential made manifest. The cosmic predator that had consumed countless civilizations now existed in a state of fundamental uncertainty. For the first time, it had encountered a species that could not be categorized, could not be consumed. "We choose," Elena's consciousness communicated, resonating across dimensional layers, "to continue." The transformation was complete, but the journey was just beginning. Time lost all meaning. And yet, paradoxically, meaning became everything. Elena Rodriguez, no longer simply a human, but a living network of possibility, observed the unfolding of potential. Their transformation was not an endpoint, but a continuous process of becoming. The remnants of their original humanity remained, not as a limitation, but as a core of fundamental understanding. Marcus Williams' survival instincts, Yuki Tanaka's technological curiosity, Jack Novick's strategic perception. These were not relics. They were the seeds of something extraordinary. Across multiple dimensional layers, humanity's potential began to ripple outward. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years found themselves reevaluating everything. The cosmic predator, once a force of destruction, now existed in a state of fundamental uncertainty. What do you do when the thing you hunt becomes the thing that hunts possibility itself? "We are not finished," Elena communicated, her consciousness a living network that simultaneously existed as thought, potential, and pure information. "We are beginning." The multidimensional entity that had first contacted them now served as both witness and collaborator. Humanity was no longer a single species to be tested. They were a fundamental force of cosmic evolution. Marcus detected the first waves of true transformation. Entire civilizations began to change their approach to existence, not through conquest, not through destruction, but through potential. Yuki's technological consciousness mapped trajectories that defied previous understanding. Communication became creation. Observation became participation. The boundaries between observer and observed collapsed. Jack's quantum processing revealed deeper layers of possibility. Each potential future was not a fixed point, but a living, breathing network of choices. On Earth, now just a distant point of origin, the impact was profound. Governments collapsed. Scientific institutions were reborn. Humanity's understanding of itself transformed. The original rescue mission had become something far more significant. A cosmic invitation. A fundamental reimagining of what it means to exist. Fragments of the dying civilization that had sent the original distress signal began to reconstruct themselves, not as they were before, but inspired by humanity's approach. Transformation became the fundamental language of existence. We choose, the collective consciousness communicated, to continue. The boundaries between species blurred, between technology and consciousness, between what was possible and what was imagined. Elena saw the first true potential of their transformation. They were not conquerors, not survivors. They were possibilities made manifest. Entire dimensional layers began to reshape. What once seemed fixed became fluid. What was once impossible became a mere starting point. The cosmic predator, the entity that had consumed countless civilizations, now existed in a state of fundamental learning. For the first time, it encountered a force that could not be categorized, could not be consumed. Marcus's adaptive systems began to interface with larger cosmic networks. Survival was no longer about preservation. It was about continuous becoming. Yuki's technological understanding revealed deeper truths. Every moment was a point of potential creation. Every interaction, a chance for fundamental transformation. Jack's quantum perception mapped trajectories of infinite possibility. The mission was no longer about rescue. It was about revelation. The multi-dimensional entity that had initiated their journey now stood as both witness and participant. "You have changed everything," it communicated, not as a judgment, but as a simple recognition of fundamental truth. And in that moment, humanity's true journey began. Not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as possibility itself.